I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. John, if you'll do the roll.
Pico. Dimmovic.
Here.
Heckman. Here. Stuckey. Stimson. Slaughter. Here. Willie.
Here. Thank you. So moving forward, if everyone's had a chance to look at the agenda and consent agenda, if we can possibly get an approval for that. I did have a question on the financial report.
Yes.
That lodging tax was up year to date 48%.
Yeah, I think it's booked in
Timing.
the timing of it, just we get random influxes of things that are processed by the accountant. So
5%.
yeah.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the past meetings in the consent agenda.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We're going to go ahead and open for communications. We have like 5 minutes if anybody wants to stand up. Yeah. Just tell your name and where you live, please.
My name is Jim Schwartz. I have a home at 335 Wagon Road. I bought here in Blue River in 2008, and so we've been proud to be here for a long, long time. I, for a long, long time, have come up with it because I worked in the city in several respects, because I'm in the real estate business in Texas. I do not do real estate business here, other than the fact that I own one home and timeshares. But I've come in for advice over time, and I've got to say I'm a little frustrated with the town employees and their advice. The first issue is that there is supposed to be an access easement next door to my property, where fishermen can get down to the Blue River. That absolutely is false information. It affected me twice, or several different ways, because one, I let fishermen down there as soon as I learned about it and said, yeah, you can come in here on my property and walk down here and go. None of them, most of them are good people just seeking to fish. Every once in a while, somebody decided they need to light a campfire down there or try to camp out. But anyway, so the second advice is there's room between the property and a new building that was built next door at home. The second thing is that the town passed or gave a building permit to a guy, and there's no protection of my property. What do I mean by that? There's no silt fence put up. I don't know of any property being built where you don't have a silt fence, but apparently here you can build a house and not have a silt fence. The result to me is 10 to 15 trees lost, and still I'm dealing with silt on my property that is probably 2 to 2.5 foot thick, 2.5 this deep of silt off of the neighbor's property onto mine. Today, the problem is that with the rain, the little monsoon that we've enjoyed in the last little bit, that there is a pipe underneath the guy's driveway. That pipe is directly pointed towards my property, and it's only 6 or 8 foot away from my property. So every time it rains, all of the drainage that's on his driveway, which is a huge driveway, comes out that pipe, and it flushes the dirt that's there onto my property. I showed the town staff the pictures of the silt on my property. Well, that sounds like a private matter between you and that guy. Well, I think that's a failure to inspect the property and to properly look out for others that are affected by a new building being built. I thank you each for your time. Sorry if I went over. I got the motion.
No, that was
No,
my reaction to fires being built was, yeah, that ain't cool. I wasn't giving you emotional time.
No, you have 2 minutes left.
Yeah, you're fine.
I'm done. Y'all can answer anything you want.
I apologize.
Anything you want. And but I've made my point. I just think that the building department here needs to do a better job of looking out for neighbors. Obviously, people are building, and they're building infill spots now, and so they're using every bit of a piece of property. And when they do that, they have the potential to interfere with another property. And in this case, I feel severely interfered with. I feel like I've not been helped during the inspection process for that house next door, because I pointed this out to several people, including the town manager at the time, and to the inspectors that came over that I happen to know because they helped me with remodeling my house years ago when they were in the private sector instead of the inspection sector. But it's really frustrating to have our piece ruined by 10 to 15 trees gone and silt coming over on your property. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. My name is Jane Hardy. I live at 809 Blue River Road. On the 10th of August, an email was sent out to you all from a group of residents on Blue River Road. I don't know if people got that. It was sent to all the trustees by Mark Warren. I've got copies here if anyone wants to have a look at that. But it was basically to see what we're going to do is see what's needed to get a discussion and action going on the issues and concerns with septic leach fields on Blue River Road. We had a meeting with Abby at Upper Blue on August the 6th, and also with Seth at the Environmental Health. And they basically said that a public sewer line needs to go down the road. It's the best long-term solution. They said there are significant environmental risks to local wetlands, high financial burden on homeowners, and we're requesting that the Town of Blue River partner with residents to look into grants and establish possibly a cost-sharing framework to make critical infrastructure project a feasible thing. This meeting on August the 6th, they basically said it would be about 42,000 a property plus excavation costs, probably another 10,000 or so. So we're looking at over 50,000. They want to put in a lift station on that northern end of Blue River Road. And they can only do it on the flat section, and the homeowners down the road from that would also have to put in lift stations as well at added expense. There's already an easement on that road, a 30-foot easement. The homes sit on the wetlands and the Blue River, basically, and an easement was given for the road to go down there. And it goes up halfway up the side of the Blue River Trail, and that's where the preferred spot is to put this lift station. So the critical risks that they came up with, there's the environmental water tables, leave many lots structurally incapable of supporting modern septic systems. Most of the lots are 3rd-acre lots, so they can't be upgraded, the septic systems, to the current what's needed. And also there's a concern that if these unresolved wastewater issues could trigger a decline in properties directly, reducing Blue River's property tax base and so on. So they came up, there was a request from action from the residents. I'm just here to relay this, that public sewer access seems to be the best path forward to protect the local ecosystem and preserve property values. Because the City of Blue River has a clear vested interest in the environmental and physical health of these properties, we propose a formal partnership. We respectfully request that the City of Blue River actively collaborate with residents to offset the high individual installation costs by doing 3 things: perhaps identifying and applying for any federal, state, or local environmental grants, establishing a municipal cost sharing or low interest financing program for residents trying to enter into the new system, and perhaps allocating existing funds in the town's budget towards upgrading sewer lines in the Blue River to Blue River residents. So it's just because of the location on the wetlands and the river, and people are just saying, look, that needs to be preserved, but some of the people are not willing to hook up because of the costs and things involved. So just wondering what we need to do to get the discussion going.
Thank you.
Hi, Cindy Pilling. I just lived up the street at Whispering Pines. I just want to thank you all for the hard work that you did at the special meeting and determining the cap, as well as all the work that was done here with the zoning. It's a tremendous achievement, actually, and I'm grateful for that. One of the things that I was thinking about that I kind of felt like we had a two-legged stool and we needed another leg was looking a little more seriously at limiting the days that individuals could rent their properties. Particularly as it relates to investors and the fact that they want to have their properties rented out every week, 52 weeks a year. And what I was hoping is that we could eliminate some of that by putting the days in terms of capping the actual days that you could rent your properties. I feel that some of the investors in Timber Creek Estates are primarily interested in profit. They're never there. I feel like eventually they will cannibalize the rest of the individuals who have second homes that want to rent their properties as a subsidy to some of their income. These investors are primarily in making a buck. And I've noticed next door to me that as it gets closer to the rental date for the renting her property, what happens is that the price goes down. And so my neighbors are saying, wait a minute, she's kind of pushing us out with her pricing. That's my thought, to put another leg on the stool, so to speak, and have the cap as well as the zoning, as well as the number of days you can rent their property. And I realize also that it seems impossible till it's done, and Nelson Mandela said that, not me. So I would encourage the board to take a look at limiting the days. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, Board of Trustees, Town Manager, Deputy Clerk. My name's Nancy Watt. I live on Wilderness Drive. I'm here for the subject that Cindy's talking about. I understand that the ordinances have been in place in regards to limitation of not density, but caps of 15% of the homes in the 5 or 6 zones that have been established. I'm not totally clear on all that yet, but I'm aware of the basic nuts and bolts. So I'm here to make a few suggestions going forward on these ordinances to possibly help navigate these challenges. It was clear in last month's town meeting, both Cindy and I were here talking, that there is the biggest challenge is enforcing of the ordinances. So here's a couple of suggestions. One is to possibly establish a task force of involved citizens to man a committee for short-term rental performance and evaluation. Citizens involved like myself, which I would be willing. I'm not a permanent resident. I've been here a long time. I can't live here full time. Not yet. Maybe a couple more years when I'm able to retire and stop working in El Paso County. I'm up here probably 5 days a week in the winter when my occupation isn't as robust. So establish a task force. So maybe secondary residents that live on the front range, people like myself that live here secondarily, that are fully vested, but can't live here full time because we don't have the opportunity to serve on the boards because we're not full time. So establish a task force, perhaps a volunteer. On the existing, 10% of you guys, 10% of the people are doing 90% of the work. That's what I'm here to say. Maybe suggest a task force committee. I would be willing to serve on. Second suggestion, to establish a coalition in which all short-term rental property owners have to join, and they have to pay to be part of the coalition. And those fees, utilize those funds to hire a private security service / agency to enforce good neighbor guidelines during more robust times, like on weekends, during high tourism, during ski season, during summer peak times. Impose fines. I know you're beginning this whole process of how to navigate this new 15% and get this out of control situation under control. So the establishment of a coalition could be a possibility. Generate funds for those who have short-term rental permits. They are in it for profit. Sure, most people reason, but they also are secondary homeowners trying to subsidize, like you said. The out-of-state investors are not locally. People are probably a different breed than they don't show up. We obviously. The other thing would be to impose fines, which I know you're going through those nuts and bolts right now. Take some of the proceeds of those fines and fund this private sector security service that we could hire to watch over the high weekends where you got most of the problems, the trash, the party, and it's really most of the time, from what I could see in my brief perusal of the information, that it's in those higher peaks that we need coverage. So the other thing is, this is something we have in Colorado Springs. I have a short-term rental down there. It's called a good neighbor guideline. And we're required as short-term rental owners to have this in our property. It says, just for us, it says, please keep your music and noise in the yard. Commercial and large-scale events are not allowed in this property. Emergency contacts, and we have to have our name on this. And this has got to be posted in a conspicuous space, on the fridge, whatever. And it's a color printout. I will send it to you in an email. I'll send it as an attachment, just for an example, just a suggestion. So in closing, I understand, and I'm in favor of a cap. I feel like 15% is a little ambitious and maybe a little restrictive, but what I would request is that's like 1 in 8 homes that we perhaps going forward, once we get everything under control, consider raising that cap gradually and get a little more balance. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nate Cundy, and I live off Indiana Creek Road, about right around by the tarn. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I kind of lived under a rock. I got 2 little twins at home, so I haven't been super engaged in the community. I haven't had the time between work and those little kids to dig into the policy. So tonight is the first time I'm hearing about a 15% cap. I was coming to just really try to figure out where the solution comes. Fully aware of the second home ownership aspect here. To be honest, my family and I are getting ready to move from the community because it has been that way. I've been living here for 8 years, and now we have 2 little kids. There's nobody around. It's all second homeowners. It's all short-term rentals. So I understand the need to get a cap on this situation. However, we've seen a degradation in our property value, which is around $250,000 as it stands today from a reduction in initial price of our home. So a substantial impact, and I think a substantial impact is really stemming from the uncertainty. So I came here tonight to try to get clarification on where this was going, because an emergency freeze was really just kind of the death blow to the real estate market here. And talking to my real estate agent and others in the community, I'm just pushing for some sort of a guideline, and it feels like you guys have done that. So I appreciate your hard work and efforts. Again, whatever's best for the community, I think you guys have the right interest in mind for everybody. I'm not coming here because, woe is me, I'm trying to sell a property, but I fully understand, and I love this community. It's just coming to a point where I think I can't afford it. So taking my family elsewhere. So I would like to kind of just question open, to you guys, where can I get this information? Something I'm missing? Is it an email? Is it a newsletter? Is it something I need to pick up at the post office? That's kind of what I'm questioning. Because it kind of just took me to understand with kind of some local residents here of how do I get involved, because again, just now it's a little bit pressing for me, and I wish I got involved sooner. The other thing, just on that Indiana Creek Road, the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit, I have a dog and two year-olds, and people blast up there. We're talking 45 miles an hour to 50. And it's mostly the second homeowners and construction folks that are there. So I call about once a month to the police department, have somebody sent out, and we usually catch around 7 or 8 people an hour or two. So it's pretty lucrative, I guess, from a tax revenue perspective. Put some base there. But can we explore some speed bumps or something in that capacity? Again, it's not necessarily going to be a huge thing for me. It's that we are moving. But just the future of whoever owns that home, whoever's on that property, that stretch is just pretty brutal. So, thank you.
Good evening, Chris Dillingham, 6871 Highway 9. It's good to see you again. I want to make an observation about where we are in our current STR regulation conversations. After last week's meeting, as I'm looking at the bigger picture, the board's committed the town to 5 really significant caps for short-term rentals, in addition to all the other regulations we have. 3 of those caps were already adopted 9 months ago with the policy but they were never enforced. So those are the 1 short-term rental per owner, which will go a long ways to keep out institutional investors. A cap on occupancy. It's actually the most strict version of occupancy caps in Summit County. 2 people per bedroom plus 2. The vehicle cap of 5 vehicles per property, I assume, to reduce neighborhood traffic. And then after last week, of course, the density cap of 15%, and then the 6 new zones also with those density caps. So that's 5 layers of caps before any real enforcement has actually begun to take place. And it represents a whole lot of heavy enforcement work ahead for the town. So tonight, I want to ask the board to actually imagine what our town looks like a little over a year from now, at the end of 2027. In one version, the board sort of stops here and starts working heavy on enforcing what's already been decided. And if we really focus there on enforcement, we'll get the software up sooner rather than later. We'll start to get the enforcement officer everyone's been talking about sooner rather than later, which means the 270 unlicensed short-term rentals in our town, like Ted's neighbor that came up last time, will get documented and shut down sooner rather than later. And the water concerns that you mentioned about hot tubs getting illegally filled, those will get actively addressed sooner rather than later. Inappropriate noise and urinating that Cindy has had to deal with won't get tolerated because enforcement will be actively working to identify the bad actors. The number of calls that the chief is getting hopefully will go down by the end of 2027 because the number of active short-term rentals have been cut in half in the town when we get rid of all the non-licensed ones. This is what next year could look like if the board really starts focusing now on enforcement instead of keep adding more and more regulations that will sort of water all the enforcement down, which is, I think, a fair concern, because there's a second version of what the end of 2027 could look like. So if the board does keep moving forward, adding more regulations on top of the ones already being discussed, like the meeting to have new caps on the number of nights that can be rented out each year, which actually would probably make me have to sell my property and not get to use it. Or if the board puts in extra occupancy caps that go beyond what anyone else in Summit County actually does, or if the board adds new minimum night stays, and on we go with any policy that we can think about, everything starts to get bogged down. And so in this scenario, I think the experience of the residents may actually be improving less and less, because the key most important ordinances with the largest impacts are getting diluted with things that may have an impact. And so people like Ted and Cindy who call in because people are breaking rules, they might get less responses because too much is getting attempted all at one time. And so the residents at the end of 2027 may still be really upset, and short-term rental owners are confused and frustrated, and some yet to be enforcement officer could be really overwhelmed with what you're throwing at him all at once. I think that's a real possibility and a threat to the efforts of the board. So my proposal to you tonight is really simple. Use next week's special meeting to focus just on enforcement, rather than spending any more time layering additional regulations before these current ones that you've already decided have actually even been tried or enforced. Because often, less can be more effective. In fact, I think the board's own goals and the mission statement that Cindy has read many times to us will be better served by focusing on the harder work of enforcement than just adding more rules to the town's ordinance. Thanks for your consideration.
Any additional public comment? I'll go ahead and close public comment. Next is a work session to discuss the agenda setting. Everyone's can so look at that one. Ask any questions or follow that you might have.
I did talk with Bari, and he noted his support for the provisions in the bylaw draft.
There aren't any other questions, I guess we could put that in.
That's the direction.
That's the direction.
Yes. That was easy.
Next, going on to new business, we have resolution 2026-10. And that is repealing resolution 13-5. So full backstory or any questions? I think we've talked about it.
We have,
Yeah.
but there's been no public announcement. We have current, both an ordinance as well as a resolution that authorize an unlimited number of people, whether resident or not resident, to obtain a permit to construct a dock on the tarn. And this it's been kind of not even seen for a long time, but it came to attention when a resident asked to have the authority to build a dock on the tarn. And that has been an issue that was raised to the board. The board was, I think, to a person against the idea of allowing additional docks on the tarn because of the impacts they'll have. We only have control, the town only has control of a small portion of what we call the donut around the tarn. And that small portion, if you filled it up with 5 or 6 docks, and they're private docks, it would limit the amount of space where the town residents could get to the water from that side of the tarn. So the recommendation was to repeal the provision. Once we've done that, we'll have an ordinance back to repeal the ordinance provision and change a little bit of what's in the current ordinance on the bigger picture of the tarn. Some changes that would be positive. For example, we prohibit bathing, but we don't prohibit swimming, which the intent was, I'm sure back 40 years ago, was you can't swim in the tarn either. Breckenridge doesn't want that because it's drinking water for the population. So there'll be some other changes, but there'll be a striking of the ability to get a permit to construct a dock. And all this does is one piece of the puzzle because we can do it faster. The ordinance takes longer to prepare it.
Do you have any questions, or otherwise we would look for a motion?
I'm not sure how to phrase the motion.
Just read it as it is.
For the
Underline.
resolution, I make a motion that we adopt resolution 2026-10, a resolution repealing resolution 13-05 pertaining to rules for the use of boat docks license at dispatch tar.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. The next is resolution 2026-11, a resolution of the Board of Trustees in the Town of Blue River authorizing the town manager to make transfers to and from accounts.
Yeah, this is also one is fairly administrative in procedure. It's the way it's currently set up is we have existing bank accounts that do not accrue interest, and then we have a separate set through a Colorado shared trust fund that does accrue interest on existing funds that if they're not being currently utilized by the town, it makes sense from a financial perspective to put them in interest-bearing accounts. And this simply authorizes the town manager to transfer to and then pull back funds from the Colorado Trust account, which can be done, as I understand it, within the same business day. But it's a procedure because currently the way it's set up that I would have to get formal approval from the board each time I do so.
And I'll add to that, all municipalities in Colorado are extremely limited to where they can place their money in interest-bearing accounts. And it transfers, having to come to you once a month when that's needed is kind of losing money on interest, and the monies are not needed. That's why we need to park them.
Any questions? Maybe motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance resolution 2026-11, resolution of the Board of Trustees, the Town of the River, Colorado, authorizing town manager to make transfers from town accounts to the Colorado Local Government Liquid Asset Trust.
Is there a second? Second. Any all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, resolution passes. The next one is ordinance number 2026-06. This is an ordinance of the Board of Trustees for amending the transition zone district to set minimum lot size, minimum lot width, and amending setbacks. We'd like to open that to public comment, 5 minutes. If anybody'd like to have public comment on this?
Did you want me to?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, please. I'm sorry, my bad.
This has been before you many times over many months. The issue is that we have a zone district in town that's been here for a long time, the TD zone district, transition zone district, which does not have a minimum lot size. In other words, if I own the property zone TD, let's say I own a 4-acre piece of land, I could create little tiny lots. There's no restriction how many I can create if I can fit units on it. And that was never the intent of the Board of Trustees since I've been here to allow extremely limited in size lots within the community. So when that was brought to the attention of the board, it's been one that's been discussed for well over a couple of years. The uniform response was we should probably place the minimum lot size in that zone district. So in a workshop several months ago, the Board of Trustees kicked around different sizes of lots, came up to the conclusion that we'll start with a 4-acre minimum. These are fairly large pieces of property within the town, and some are very restricted with regard to their ability to develop. So they're constrained by wetlands and slopes and other things, but a 4-acre is minimum for a lot in this proposed zone district. The other issue comes up when you start messing with zone districts is that you need to address the minimum lot width, which is the amount of space along the road the lot will take up. In the R1 zone district, which is predominantly the zone district for most of the town, the distance is 100 feet. In this proposal, the board has kicked around 100, they talked about 250, but that number needs to be cemented here tonight so that we can add it to the ordinance should you approve it. But you'll see in the little form that I gave you, it looks like this, a little blank worksheet. In that worksheet, it talks about each of the issues we'll go through. It tells you what the R1 zone district is, which is very most of the community, and then the ideas that have been kicked around, some by the P&Z, some by the Board of Trustees. But besides minimum lot size, which is 4 acres proposed, minimum lot width, which could be 100, could be 250, could be anything you want. The Planning and Zoning Commission, as I recall, wanted to go with 250. Front yard setbacks, this is the distance from the street to the residence. It's been discussed at a setback of 25 feet, which is the current for the R1 zone district, 100 feet, and 75 feet. So those are the kind of discussions that we've had. The recommendation was to go to initially, let's go to 75 feet, because these are large lots, so the house can be pushed back by this.
You're talking about front yard,
Yes,
that's
front
25, 100, and 250.
Yeah, 250.
75 is the rear.
We should be, and 70, the front should be 75, 125, that 250s should be right. 75, 50, and 25. Rear yard setback's the same.
Okay.
In the R1, we have a 25-foot setback. And you need to set a setback for the front and for the rear. The R1 is 25 for front, 25 for rear. It's up to you what you want to set it back. One issue that we do have, because these lots are, many of them are restricted by significant wetlands and slopes, is to perhaps think about not going to an extremely large setback for front or rear, because they'll need to have some flexibility in placing the home due to these impediments that they'll see on the property. Side yard setbacks, we've talked about 75, 50, and 25. The R1 zone district is 15. Now understand the R1 zone district is just shy of 2 acres. These are 4 acre lots. And then lastly, building height, the R1 zone district is 35 feet total height. And that has been the recommendation by P&Z and the one kind of number that the Board of Trustees has also felt that that was appropriate for the 4 acre TD zone district. So perhaps we can ask the public their thoughts. You guys can, the board can kick around. If we can come to a conclusion what the appropriate numbers are, we could add them in, and then we can approve the resolution with those additions.
Any public comment on this?
Well, a 75-foot front setback is a lot of driveway for expense purposes, but 4 acres is a big parcel. Did you offer, it was 50 feet, one of the options?
Yes.
25?
75,
25 is probably too close, I think.
50, 25, 75.
I think 50, yeah. Minimum, right? It can exceed that, but.
I
that's
can
minimum.
exceed that, but that's a minimum.
Thoughts?
I'd prefer to see it open. I mean, like Bob has said, the lots that we're dealing with are so restricted already. There's nothing in here about the wetlands, which I think is the most important part. Stick with 100 feet, 25, 25, 25. There's no question on the height. The height stays 35 no matter what.
So you're saying 100?
Instead of the R1 rules.
Yeah, just stay with the rules.
Block.
Keep it the same, keep it consistent. Less work, less issues for Chad.
I will say that was my original proposal to the P&Z. And they're the ones who kind of blew it up a little bit, but I was at the R1 zone district, it's flexible.
Because it's still a 4 acre lot. You're just giving them the ability to move stuff.
I guess the house closer to the street, have a big backyard.
But the side distance would be different from R1. It would add an additional 10 feet.
Yeah, the 25.
But I'm just pointing it out. It's not exactly the same as R1. I want to make sure that everyone's aware of that.
But at any point, someone can also apply for a variance.
Sure.
Even with these tricky lots, I think what I said before too, stick to that, but also you can have a stricter wetlands requirement for a survey before they apply for both.
And that's coming soon. We're gonna have to extensive wetlands regulations soon.
Everybody good with that?
I'm gonna,
125, 25, 25, 35 for the height?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. I make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2026-06, an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Blue River, Colorado, amending the transition zone district to set a minimum lot size, minimum lot width, and amending setbacks to the aforementioned distances, 125, 25, 25, building height of 35.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, motion, ordinance passes. Next is ordinance 2026-07, and I will let you introduce that one.
Okay. Well, did you want to take public comment? We're not
Oh,
required to, but why don't we ask and see if our motion needs to be readdressed?
On the last, ordinance, is there any public comment? I'm sorry, I kind of just thought. No,
We're done.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is regarding something that's been in place for 6 years now. The town, in way back time, was of a mind that we should limit the ability for individuals to subdivide their properties. In other words, what property size they had 6 years ago is the property size they've been stuck with for a while. And the town imposed a moratorium on the division of property. The reason for that, the predominant reason for that moratorium was to allow the board time to go and think about the TD zone district and whether our lot sizes are appropriate in other zone districts. Over time, we didn't get to that issue until recently, second year and a half or so, we started talking about the TD zone district. The whole idea is that we could set a TD zone district minimum lot size. We're happy with all the other lot sizes within the town. We could lift the moratorium, repeal the moratorium. This ordinance would repeal the moratorium since you approved the TD zone district. This ordinance is a little different in the effective date. It waits until the TD zone district is effective and only until the date that's effective. We have to wait 30 days and it could be challenged. If anything happens to keep that from being effective as of October 1, this ordinance, even though approved, will not become effective. I don't anticipate that happening. We would like the TD zone district set in stone, if you will, before we lift the moratorium. And that's what this ordinance is.
I can open this up to public comment if there's any.
What's the minimum lot size now that you could subdivide down to?
Whatever's the minimum lot size for the zone district. So if you're in the R1 zone district, which most of the town is, it's 80,000 square feet. Most of the town has been divided into lots that are much smaller than that, much smaller.
Right.
So really what that says is basically if you got what you got in the R one zone district, you're stuck with it. Unless you happen to have 4 acres and you've cut it in half, right? So the minimum lot size in the zone district is what the minimum size you can have. Doesn't affect much of R1, who's already divided well below 80,000 square feet. It really affects, it allows people in the TD zone district to come in and get an application and to divide their property at the 4 acre site instead of you have a moratorium in place. So it lifts that moratorium so they can apply for it. But
They still have to be approved.
absolutely.
Any other public comment? Close that, and then any comments, questions from the board? To make a motion, someone? If everything looks good?
I make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 2026-07, an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Blue River, Colorado, repealing section 17-1-30.1 of the Blue River Land Development Code, effective October 1, 2026, subject to the condition that ordinance number 26-06 is in full force and effect on October 1, 2026. May I get a second?
Awesome. Good. Second, great, all in favor? Or ordinance passes. Any old business? No. And then, no. Oh, mayor and trustee reports. Did you have anything?
Wildfire Council meets tomorrow.
Okay,
I'll be there.
so next meeting.
And Transit Board, I'm not sure when we meet next, but I'll be there too. And I do have something, I need to meet with the Transit Board people about the bus stops that we have talked about in the past. The lady has an idea about park and ride, but I'm not sure that it's gonna work, so that discussion will take place. If anyone wants to know what she wrote to me, I can forward you her email or whatever, but I don't think we have a spot for parking. And the difficulty is in finding spots for bus stops. So, I mean, the people that are walking along the highway in the winter to get to a bus stop don't have a car. So how are they going to park and ride? So I don't know. It's ongoing. I'll keep you updated. Nothing further.
Attorney report?
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think that we should, even though short-term rentals has dominated this, really have a discussion about the building inspector situation and what's been going on, because I don't think people are happy, and I don't think that the planning and zoning board is happy either with things that are being brought to him. And I know it's been backburnered, but I think we need to put that to the top of the list very soon to figure out what to do there.
That is actually an executive session. So
And then,
something
in addition,
adjacent to it.
hearing from other builders around, I know that the state forced all of this fire stuff upon us that we had to pass, they said. But I think we should have a serious concern meeting about all the new fire code is leading to materials that are costing people 3 to 4 times as much, and or are these materials really going to stop a fire in this valley? I don't think they are. And I think it's an unnecessary burden on the environment as far as creating the materials, the cost, and what they're actually going to do. If you're only going to get a 30-minute burn rating, it's not going to do anything. And I think maybe we should try to write a letter through, have Chad direct him to write something to the Colorado state level saying that it's kind of useless and not worthy, because in addition, are these materials going to pollute the environment so much with black smoke because they're made of unnatural things? That's not going to be worth it either. We're going to see more environmental impacts later if we do actually have a fire. And I think none of that was considered. And I hate to believe, or not to believe, that lobbying didn't control half of this decision. And we should try to do some pushback because it's kind of ridiculous.
Wasn't some of that forced on us if we
It
didn't?
was all forced on us.
Yes,
If we didn't do it, they were gonna sue us.
Every single bit was forced. We had no opinion.
So is the county level a place to go with this to have
Then
them?
we need to go.
Well, I mean,
Because they
I
got
understand
forced on
that. I
them,
don't mean stopping at the county. I mean getting the county on board so that we can get all the other towns and Blue River and the Board of County Commissioners and look to Vail and anyone else that we can get on the bandwagon.
But I see things that a lot of those people just do things because it's a feel good thing. They don't look at
Well, the
facts
state
of
is
what's
doing
actually
it because
going
it's a feel good thing to jump on California's bandwagon.
Correct.
And it's our responsibility then to push back against that
I
and
would
to
agree.
enlist as much support as we can from other municipalities. So I'd say CML onto this at all, or
No, but you should get them on.
well, we can work on that too, because that will involve CML is probably key actually to enlist them to help us lobby the state against this stuff.
Yeah.
So what do we need to do, Bob? Draft a letter to the CML?
I'll pick up the phone and call them. Kevin Bomber and I are close.
I know you are. So we can
make it.
we can
If
direct
it was
you
going
to
to actually make
phone.
a difference, I would understand, but I don't think it's going to make a difference.
Yeah, I just don't know why were we forced to do it? Is it, they were gonna sue us? Is that what it was, or what was I can't remember what, it was a while ago. Anyway,
Yeah, we didn't need to know.
I guess more information down the line, right?
Let's pick up information and see what rallying, what forces would help. it may be a case of, if I talk to Kevin, it may be a case that tells me they have thought about it. I'm unaware of it, even though I wasn't bored. But they have talked about it. They realize that it is not worth the time because it's not going to affect. I'll find out.
Okay. Do you have anything to report?
No, I do.
Okay. And then Chad, you want to town manager report?
Sure. My written report was a decent bit of length this go around, so I'll just give some broad strokes on the matter. Got the financial report for July. It's in the agenda packet. Received that yesterday. And that lodging tax is one of those things of note. Above projections, it's hard to judge these items with the changes in the policy given that were done in 2025, as well as booking and accounting was done as a bulk status. That was during last month. Other funds are trending favorably, I'd say, generally speaking. Trending slightly above projection in total revenues in the general fund and slightly over budget in total expenditures. So, all things being relatively consistent month over month at the given moment. But if you have any questions on the rundown and anything, please let me know. I'm happy to dig into some details. Update on fire restrictions. We are at high departure from the extreme that was for about the last 2 to 3 months. However, we're still at stage 2 fire restrictions, and that doesn't look like there's going to be abating anytime soon. Especially with the monsoonal rains, generally speaking, starting to taper off towards this part of the year. And intermittent rain only does so much to abate that situation. And it's definitely starting to turn into the effort of residents needing to move into the fall fuel collection and on their individual properties to prevent late stage fires. Goose pasture tarn stuff's been in there for months. It's the same thing. It's about the access of boat permits applications are live, and it's a rundown of the information at hand and the fact that that town residents and a few other categories are allowed to use the tarn, but short-term rentalers are not permitted to use the tarn. Town road summer maintenance, basic road upkeep is generally completed. Most roads have been completed at this time. Town is testing the use of DuraBlend to a small subsection of roads instead of standard mag chloride. And we're going to test the efficacy and see how that works through this potentially heavier winter snowfall season in regard to reducing the impact and use of magnesium chloride on town streets. Some completed projects to highlight is we've done quite a few drainage and stabilization efforts across town. The G&G is doing a substantial effort to catalog existing culverts across town that were put in place before, not in tandem with mapping technology, and have been forgotten or lost to time for a while, and we've been uncovering them throughout this season as capital projects have been a higher emphasis. We've done ditch cleanouts on a number of the roads around town, several new cross culverts, culvert cleanouts also being the case. And we are still doing some upcoming projects that plan to be done, include old culvert investigation on Coronet Drive and possible obstructions of existing previous culverts on Coronet Drive for cleanup purposes, as well as a installation of 6 different driveway culverts on Royal Drive and Regal Circle. Notifications have been sent out to the affected homeowners. It'll improve drainage, reduce standing water, and improve property access. And the construction dates are generally set as early September, each property being 1 to 2 days of impact during these projects. 2027 budget is still being developed. We're working on the first draft behind the scenes and hoping to have that working and moving forward in the next few weeks. Please, any board member, please provide any thoughts or recommendations if it's in public forum or individually reaching out to me regarding the possible use of a budget retreat or issues that were present during the use of past budget retreats that may want to be remedied, or other helpful items to incorporate in the budget process. Another item to note is that Quikrete, a concrete manufacturer on the north side of Silverthorne has asked for our letter of support for their renewal of a conditional use permit. Frisco and Breckenridge have both lent their support via letters with a note that they support any conditions which mitigate potential environmental impacts associated with the operation. And a fact sheet has been provided. And if recommended by the board, the town will draft a letter of support to provide to Quikrete related to their conditional support request. Part of their argument being made is the limited ability of providing local materials, and the accessibility of concrete and other local materials can be quite challenging and will be made potentially more challenging if they do not receive a conditional use permit. So that's something I wanted to bring before the board and gauge your thoughts on that.
So is the county trying to take away their permits to keep the concrete plant there?
There are a number of local residents that disagree with that are contesting the conditional use permit.
It's the Maryland Creek Ranch.
I was gonna say some Sky Ranch, so they don't want it.
So they want people to drive 2 hours in a giant diesel truck to haul concrete?
Yeah, they
that's
want
good for the environment.
more trucks coming over the pass every day, and
Well, nonetheless, just wanted to bring that in front of the board for your attention and thoughts on that.
I support the renewal.
I support the renewal.
We don't need more truck driving. Burning fuel.
Write your letter.
Okay, Cal will draft a letter.
Thank you.
Yes. Just a note, there had been an intended executive session regarding town manager work plan and compensation structure that had been slated for this meeting, but we moved a little faster than I was actually expecting through this meeting. But the existing executive sessions on hand, I propose to move that to the next week's special session. The agreement stipulated that a performance evaluation is required at the completion of the trial period, with subsequent eligibility for a wage increase at discretion of the board. And due to congestion, as I said, we removed that from this agenda, and will be addressed at a later date. Preliminary results for the 2025 audit have been provided by our auditor, McMahon and Associates, which are, this preliminary draft is included in the agenda packet. The independent auditor's report notes that the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material aspects the respective financial position of the governmental activities in each major fund of the town of Blue River as of December 31st, 2025, and their conformance with the generally accepted accounting principles. The final non-preliminary draft will be included for review at a later date as it becomes available to the town. Please review this communication letter in the agenda packet in more depth. Some recommendations from the auditor have been included as well in this manager's report, and if you'd like me to go into more detail, I can have you do so. That's the extent of my spiel.
Can we go back real quick and talk about the culverts? I know the 6 properties that he wants to put new culverts in, but I just was walking the dog the other day, and the culvert that Bob Wheeler put in prior to his departure and before Corey ever came in, Bob put a culvert in this guy's driveway, and it's completely blocked or clogged. So who's responsible for cleaning out that culvert?
Let me ask you: is this running parallel to the town road in the ditch, like in the ditch on the road?
Yes.
Then that is something I'm glad you're noting, because we're working on the culvert clean out process going on right now. That would be a town responsibility.
Right. Well, okay. So we need to let Casey know that this culvert is completely blocked.
Correct.
And I'll be happy to get with you later and let you know which driveway it is. But my concern is for the 6 people that don't have culverts that the town is going to basically force on them. Then the town is going to maintain responsibility, or Casey through Casey, to clean those culverts out.
Correct.
And then we need to continue to follow up on that too. I know where it's below town park.
Yep. And part of this is to make sure we continue and have the presence of appropriate depth of the ditches on the sides of town roads, and the lack of culverts causes considerable washout that tends to mitigate ditch efforts in a pretty frequently. So
But if the sandbag, this is what frustrates me about government at all levels, is that we could have walked some sandbags up there and put them on that guy's property with his permission, of course, and that would have stopped all that. But instead, now we have a culvert and 6 more. Anyway, thanks for letting me vent.
Thank you. Yeah. Anything else you would like to bring up? In relation to my manager report, we can do other matters right after this. If not, I'll throw it over to the chief of police.
As always, does anybody have questions for me in particular?
Like you had a little increase in work over that prior month from that report, but
I mean, actually, I was just looking at that myself. There's, they said 126 calls higher, and we average between 200 and 300 calls, I believe. 126 more higher than any month this year. But then if you look at the number of code enforcement calls, that was 123. So that's majority. And I'll be honest, that is specifically doing compliance checks at the tarn. That's the vast majority of that, with some other trash and parking issues and things thrown into that. Mr. Slaughter, did you have a question about the other issue?
Which one?
Blue River Road?
Oh, the lift station was burbling yesterday and pushing out sewage. And then Noah, former trustee, noted it and flagged me down as I was coming into the neighborhood. I stopped. We called Lamine. Lamine thought it advisable to inform the chief. Noah had already called up for Blue Sanitation. The guy came out there, and Lamine followed up with me and said that they got it under control. I just wondered if you had any more information, because I left at that point. I mean, sanitation was on the way. The chief had been informed. Lamine, who was on duty, had been informed. So I went home.
Yeah, so, right, I mean, it's a biohazard, you don't want raw sewage in our community. Luckily, it wasn't that massive of a spill, and it was contained to some kind of retention ponds. So it didn't leak into any flowing water or anything like that. That was the concern, though. If it doesn't get fixed, because it's right down there in the river basin area. It's my understanding that a valve mechanically broke, that is used to kind of help siphon air out of the system. And it usually has a shut off if water or sewage touches that valve. That valve misfunctioned and broke, filling that vault, which then overflowed into generally the parking lot area. They were able to replace that valve. The repeated issue, we're not too afraid of that. They're also inspecting their other equipment. They, with their big vacuum truck, whatever the hell that is, they sucked up all the standing water, and they put down some lime and stuff as a disinfectant and to help with also smell. And then they also kind of regraded the area and kind of prepped it back up from any degradation that had happened, and believe it's under control. We also notified Breckenridge Water, Denver Water, and Colorado Public Health as well. So everybody was notified, and right now we're good with the situation.
Scares me about another lift station, though.
Well, as much as they charge everybody to drip them
That's
off,
right.
they should be able to maintain their stuff.
Right?
But we also have no recourse against them because it's private for profit.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
I got a bunch of signs down at the tarn though today. Those finally got established, put up, so that do not enter without permit, where to park, no overnight parking. The park's open from dawn to dusk, no winter maintenance. All those things have been posted now, so I can sleep at night.
Did we remove the old signage?
No, and that's tomorrow's guy will do that.
Coleman will help.
Okay, yeah, there's not much to do with that, but it's all uniform and looks pretty nice, I think.
Cool. Take a drive by. It looks nice.
I mean, it was a lot of help from Wick too, who helped build weld. He welded for us and did some things. So thanks, Sam.
Chief.
There matters to be brought before the board of trustees. If I can get motions for the next two executive sessions, knowing that when we come back, we will not be doing any more business, so we'll just adjourn out of those executive sessions.
I don't have the dialogue.
One.
Motion to enter executive session pursuant to CRS section 24-6-4024 to receive legal advice and answers to specific questions concerning potential changes in federal and state government decision-making processes for the use of highway rights of way. And executive session pursuant to CRS section 24-64024B and E to receive legal advice on questions concerning interpretation of contract terms and to devise negotiation strategy and instruct negotiators concerning a services agreement.
I'll second.
Do we have one more on the agenda back? Or is this?
There was three,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there was three.
There
There
were
were three
three.
on this one.
Yeah, that's,
There's not three on the one that just pulled up on my screen, but I know I saw three in my email.
yeah, let me-
In the interest of transparency.
Yeah.
Stand by.
yeah, we discussed.
Motion. She'll say so.
I need to read this thing. Maybe to add this. Executive session pursuant to CRS section 24-6-4024B and E to receive legal advice on means and methods to create trails within the town and to devise negotiation strategy and instruct negotiators on the use of different means and methods for trail creation.
So moved.
Now you have three on the motion.
Second.
Aye.
All those in favor? Okay. Great. Motion passes. Thank you all for
Thank you,
coming.
ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you all for your service.